Too lazy to do it once. It tastes too bad.
Thank you. He's here again. Evening all. By now I'm no stranger, I suppose. I'm Paddy. I've been asked by John to come along again and present my pieces of music that I find interesting. Very interesting to me. So we've got a bit of Hurdy Gurdy and you've got a little bit of singing maybe. I left them loaded tonight, I don't know why, I think. Now the Hurdy Gurdy, who doesn't know what this is? You've all seen this, have you?
Richard's forgot.
We call it a Hurdy Gurdy in this country, probably thanks to Samuel Pepys. He is certainly recorded as having called it a Hurdy Gurdy. Whether he was the first, I don't know. It's a wheel fiddle really, and it's in French where this one was made, it's called vielle. Vielle à roue, vielle with a wheel, or a fiddle with a wheel. It's exactly what it is. It's a bit like a narrowboat, I suppose, with strings, with a decoration. They didn't always have this form of decoration. The Hurdy Gurdy can be traced right back to about the time of the Norman Conquest in its earliest form, which was probably just a bit of a box with maybe 8 or 10 keys, diatonic scale on it, and one string perhaps. It had a wheel and a handle, which is the important bit. And some of the earlier ones were two-man jobs, big tenor instruments that two people would sit. The instructor would sit and turn the handle on this end, and the novice, usually used for sacred music, the novice would sit beside him and he would take instruction from the guy who was turning the handle on the end. And he would pull up levers which would stop the length of the string to make a simple tune. And there would be a drone along with that. I'll talk more about the drones in a minute. And that was called an organistrum. But the Hurdy Gurdy, or the vielle, had different names in those days. It was called, in this country, the symphony, cymbalon, I can't remember. There were several names that have got confused with other instruments nowadays, so they don't really make any sense anymore. And it was, as I said, a bit of a box with a string, a wheel, a handle, and a few keys. And you can see these instruments depicted in various old cathedrals around Europe, in Spain, in Beverly Cathedral, in Soria in Spain, and Santiago de Compostela, dating right back to the 11th century. And it reached this sort of form of shape and decoration due to the French royal family becoming interested. It was always considered to be a peasant instrument. It was never considered to be a serious bit of kit to play in a classical orchestra, anything like that. But for various reasons, really. But certainly blind beggars and itinerants and disillusioned hurdy-gurdy folk singers used to play them, and they'd travel around, and people like Marie Antoinette and the French aristocracy became fascinated by peasants and peasantry, and they used to have these fêtes, these fairs and festivals they called fêtes champêtres, country fairs, where they would dress up as peasants and invite their friends along, and they would pretend to be poor peasants. Can you imagine French aristocracy pretend to be poor peasants? They didn't make a very good job of it, I have to say. But they wanted hurdy-gurdies. Of course, they had beautiful lutes and things, and they had their local luthier who would make these lovely instruments for them. And so they got them to make them hurdy-gurdies, or convert their instruments into hurdy-gurdies. and so it became accepted as a civilised and important instrument for a short time. There were composers at that time who wrote for the instrument, for the hurdy-gurdy. Leopold Mozart, the old man, and Vivaldi, Corret, and Haydn a little bit, wrote serious bits and pieces for hurdy-gurdy. But it never caught on because it's a bugger to play, and it's a bugger to keep in tune, and it's a bugger to keep playing nicely because it'll be playing beautifully and suddenly it'll kick off in a harmonic and oh dear, oh dear. There. And it's a drone instrument. And drone instruments don't sit well with other orchestral instruments, so it has a special place in people's hearts because of this drone. A lot of the fascination for me is the fact that it is a drone instrument. It's a drone that gets to you and gets into you and adds the sort of this last time I was here, I had the straps falling a bit.
I was just wondering whether people say something about taming the beast. That's what you're kind of. It feels like what you're saying.
Yeah. You have to live with a hurdy-gurdy, and you have to get rid of the fear of it because it needs regulating all the time. It depends on resin on the wheel. It depends on the degree of cotton on the strings, pressure, and atmosphere, and your mood at the time. And really, it just needs playing with. You've got to learn to not be afraid of it and to work on it.
Work with it.
Yeah, and if you can get around to making one or two of them, then that's even better because you can dispel the fear of the thing. Fear. You know what I mean? But it's that which is the fascination for me. This is the drone. It goes on all the time when you're playing. The drone is common to many instruments around the world, obviously bagpipes. Indian music with the sitar and the fact that they have a tambour or a shruti box or something like that playing a constant note whilst the music's being played. And all the sympathetic strings that are droning and vibrating underneath while the melody's being played. It has a real spiritual and sort of healing effect. In fact, they play certain ragas to people who have had serious surgery in India. They get somebody in to play certain ragas which have a real healing effect on people. So that's the drone, the bourdon, the burden, that which must be carried all the time. There are two drones playing together there, a few D's and an A, so you've got a little short chord playing. here. The first two little bits of that snatch of tunes were wedding marches. They march very slowly in France, I suppose, I don't know. You can find lots and lots of sort of postcards of peasant weddings in France with hurdy-gurdy men walking along in front, so just playing that tune particularly, and supposed to be good karma for the bride and groom. And the waltz I played at the end was a contemporary tune. It was written by a guy called Eric Elsener, who's a bagpiper with the band La Chavanais. I'll set Eric's boss. A bit more about this instrument. This was made in France by a young dude who used to live in Brittany, called Bernard Coebeuf. He now lives in Vichy, to be nearer the centre of where they make these things. And he was allowed to go into the museum in Montluçon, in the centre of France, and take casts or measurements of the heads of the instruments that they have in the museum. It's a museum for the hurdy-gurdy and for the bagpipes. And a lot of the instruments there were those that were taken after the French Revolution. They were gathered up and kept somewhere, and quite a few of them found their way into this museum in Montluçon now. And Bernard was allowed to go in and take dims off all of the heads, which are very famous on the gurdies, and this is a copy of one of the instruments that's in the museum there. I don't know if it was Marie Antoinette's. Might have been, who knows? She might have liked a nice bearded chap, but they're not normally bearded chaps, they're nearly always female heads. And especially nowadays, a lot of the French ones have a head which sort of depicts the image of Georges Sand, the beloved of Chopin and many others. Put us up around a bit, did George.
Apparently.
She was called, what's her name? Amandine. Oh, she had about 4 Christian names. Dupin. Anything with lovely names like that, well, she might be called George. It's the only way she could get published, apparently. She was famous for writing this tale of the guild of bagpipers that used to exist in the centre of France for a couple of centuries. Bagpipes are very, very popular in France, or they certainly were in the past, and becoming more so again now. You might not know, but bagpipes exist everywhere. Every nation has some form of bagpipe, it seems. Not only the squaws. In fact, most of the bagpipes that I've heard from other places around the world sound a lot nicer and sweeter on the ear than many of the squaws' pipes. Sorry if I've offended any Scots within the room, but there you go. I do love the drone of the bagpipes anyway. I can play a tune in different because it's a diatonic instrument in the fact that it's got a chromatic keyboard, 2 octaves chromatic. These are the natural notes and these are the sharps and flats. But because of the drones, it's held in fixed keys, so you can't go to playing right through the whole scale. So this, because it's tuned in D mainly, it means I can play in D, obviously. I can play in G, and I can play in A, and relative minors to that. If I want to play in other keys, then I have to have another hurdy-gurdy, or a different set of strings, or retune the drones. And because they don't like being yacked around too much, you tend to leave it in the same sort of configuration. That was why I had a different hurdy-gurdy last time I came. I had a black one, which was tuned a lot lower. It's a sort of an alto version of the beast. But I can play the tunes I played just now in the key of G. Oh, sort of G. But if I bring another drone in, And that's in A on top of the D. And I can play in D. That was a tune written by Cliff Stapleton. He was for a long time the Hurdy Gurdy player with the band Bluesabella. The tune's called Fine Alec. I played a band with other folks and we called ourselves Buff. French expression. Yeah. Whatever. That's us really. And we played for French dancing. And French dancing is a bit like English Cody dancing, except you don't have anyone telling you what to do. You're supposed to know, you're supposed to have learned before you come along to a bell. Although we do give some instruction in the course of the evening, but not very much. So the band just plays and people just go and dance. Or the band might say, this is a bourrée in 2-time, bourrée in 3-time, or squatiche, or whatever, and people get up and dance, you know. None of this shouting and hollering and boarding up people all the time. I'm going to play a couple of, no, I'll play one bourrée to start with. This is a bourrée in 2-time. The bourrée is probably the most popular dance at a French bell. These bells started life, I suppose, for a lot of people because of the amazing amount of expats that found themselves living and working in Paris in the winter time, because there's not much work in France performed in the winter. They used to make their way to Paris where they would cart wood and cart coal and this sort of thing, and be general sort of dog's bodies, and they would come up from the Morvan, from the Auvergne, Paddy, and particularly from the Morvan, they would bring their ox carts to cart the wood and to cart the coal, and they would drive their ox in all the way from the Morvan, which is well, it's the sort of western end of Bourgogne, really. It's a bit like the Lake District when you're there. It's nice and high. There are lakes, mountainous sort of bits, and forests, and it's absolutely beautiful. This is the Morvan. The Morvandiers, the people who live there, are very fiercely proud of their region. They sort of, they just look different. They look still wear clogs quite a lot, and the ox cart guys were known as the galvache. The rig was a galvache, the cart, and the beast on the front. And they used to drive these things along, but they were shod like horses, except because they got cloven hooves. They had to have a sort of steel horseshoe which was split in the middle and sort of articulated so that the foot could spread. And in the little village where we go for a big festival every year, I haven't been lately, but I've been several times, in the little village of Anno, where they have a big Hurdy Gurdy festival, there's a little spitbury built now. It's a reproduction of what used to be there, but it's like a little building in the marketplace where I suppose those blacksmiths who used to shoe these oxen, where they would sort of tether the beast, and they had to kneel with their legs stood up on this little sort of wall that came across, and you could do 4 at a time because it was like a shape of a swastika sort of shape. They'd drive these oxen in there and shoe them. I didn't know you could shoe an oxen, but there you go. They did. And there's always been a tremendous amount of I'm waffling because I've been asked to waffle a bit. you get music any day, but you don't get stories like that. There's always been a tradition of wood handling from the Bourbon, because back in the days of the king, he wanted the forests around Paris, obviously, for his own purposes, for hunting and this sort of thing, so he didn't want the wood cut down. So there were times in Paris when they ran out of wood for building, especially after a fire or something. And so they had no wood to build with, no wood to burn. So a lot of the forests around, particularly because the Morvan was handy, had a big river running nearby, they had these guys who would float the logs down as near to Paris as they could, and then they would cut for the last short bit, maybe if they couldn't get to the Seine. But the Loire particularly was a good river for floating logs, because it sort of headed north generally. And these people were known as les flotteurs. They used to live on, they would pull all these logs together that were cut down and towed down to the river. And the rivers were much higher in the winter time, then much wider. And they would lash all these logs together, and they would actually live on there for weeks on end. And people would pay a fee to travel on the raft. And they had like rudimentary cabins and things where people could shelter and this sort of thing. And they cook on there and everything. And they were known as les flotteurs. So I'm going to play a tune which is Scottish and is dedicated to les flotteurs. It's called the Flotteur. And then if I get that far, I shall add another Scottish on the end of a tune that was derived from a song sung by Georges Brassens. And he sang it in 6/8, and I'm going to play it square in 4/4. So. And that's called something like C'est suffit à croiser le pont, or something like that. It's enough to cross the bridge. The hurdy-gurdies used to be found all over Europe at one time, but nowadays it's thought of mainly as a French instrument, but that's not strictly true. It's found quite a bit in Spanish, even sort of Galician, the sort of Celtic areas fringed down the western coast of Spain and into Portugal. But it's very, very strong in Eastern Europe, in Hungary particularly. There's a very strong tradition of Eastern European hurdy-gurdy playing. And not, the gurdy is not so finely built as this. It's much more of a sort of a jam-covered strap around your waist, you know. It's got a big old door on it. And the trumpet, the vibrating bridge, that gives a buzz, is a much coarser sounding thing, and a smaller wheel than it's tend to hold a handle in. So it's different, has different sound altogether. But nevertheless, it's hurdy-gurdy. It's called tecaluant in Hungary, or tekalo. In Brittany there's a bit of it, but Brittany you probably know is famous for its bagpipes and bombard as being the main musical instruments in Breton music. But there are hurdy-gurdies, and as I said, this is made by a Breton guy. I play a Breton tune. I think I might have played this last time I was here, or the first time I came. It's a tune called the Ronde de Pluck, and it's used for a dance called the Ronde Saint-Vincent, circle dance from St. Vincent in northern Brittany. And if I get that far, I'll tack another tune on the end, which isn't a French tune at all. It's a Galician tune, just to prove my point. And but this is one of the cantigas to Santa Maria, and I'm reliably informed it's Cantiga 159, and there are about 400 models. They were composed at the request of King Alphonse X, I think he was, of that particular region in Spain, whenever that might have been. I have no idea his story, I have to say, but nice name, Alphonse X. He was a polymath, if you like. He was very free-thinking, gathered people from all races around him as much as he could, so he could learn their cultures, their ways, their religions, their faiths, and quite a character, quite a guy. Read up on Alphonse X, good man. don't know if I told you how I got into this French stuff. I think it was a lot of it was to do with John, I think. He's a lot to do with a lot.
Generally is.
Yeah. I used to play in drunk halls many years ago, as did lots of us, till we got thrown out.
Go on.
We thought of forming an ex-drunk halls band, those who got thrown out of the band. But we had some good times, and we got invited down to John's in-laws, the family, the young brothers of the family had some event going on in Firminy near Clermont-Ferrand in the centre of France, and they invited Trunkles to go down and play, which we duly did. That's nice. And after driving for thousands of bloody hours, we got there, and we arrived in the middle of the night almost, and I knew I was going to have a good time when we finally got out of the van, and the guy came up and thrust a big old baguette with a couple of maguey sausages inside in one hand, and a big glass of wine in the other hand. This is good.
This is the Reeve.
It was one of those hot, lovely, warm nights, and there was music going on. It was just lovely. And it was probably my first experience of sort of outdoor folk music in France, and it was brilliant. And probably nothing further to do with John. I got more and more interested in it as time passed by, and I attend festivals in France quite a lot. Particularly in the early days at a festival called Saint-Chartier, in the village of Saint-Chartier, near to Georges Sand. I didn't finish telling you about Georges, did I? She wrote this fantastic tale about the piping guilds of France, and in tribute to her, it's called Les Maîtres Sonneurs. In tribute to her, eventually one day someone decided to hold a festival or a little event in the grounds of the chateau at Saint-Chartier, which is just across the road from Nohant-Vic, where she used to live, on the main road from Châteauroux down to La Charte. So Saint-Chartier was about less than a mile away, I suppose. We used to walk there to a restaurant for supper when we used to go to the festival there, so it wasn't that far. I wouldn't walk more than a mile at that time. So this festival started probably about 1980, I think was the first one. And I caught on to it about 1983, 84, and I went for about 13 years every year until it got a bit too big, and I no longer felt as happy there as I used to do. And then the hotel, or rather the chateau, was sold off to Hotel Consortium, and they said they didn't want these old hippies in their front garden every year. You'd have to go somewhere else. So they've now moved up the road to closer to the Charte, at a place called Chateau d'As. Chateau D''ARS, Das, known in England as Arse Castle. And it's a lovely little festival. It nearly failed because they overspent on guests the first time they tried to run it there, because they went bankrupt when they were finishing at Saint-Chartier. They decided to go bust because they were having troubles with finances. So they started what they thought was small, but they weren't small enough, so it nearly went bust completely then. But now it's been going for about 5-6 years at Chateau d'As, and it's now becoming quite a lovely little festival. So if you get half a chance, it's one for your diary, and it always has to include the 14th of July, Bastille Day. So the weekend nearest to the 14th will be the weekend of the festival, including that day, wherever it is, you know.
So is it now called Festival
It's
Chateau d'As?
called Le Son Continue. The sound goes on because the music goes on, because it goes on having finished at Saint-Chartier. It's now continuing it to Chateau d'As. Le Son Continue, and that's probably one of the nicest festivals in the centre of France in the middle of summer. My favourite, as I said, in Hanau, in the Morvan, is Fête de Vielle, if you want to find it online. Fête de Vielle, Anost, A-N-O-S-T. And the band, a lovely French band called Le Chavanais, very famous, wonderful bunch of musicians and people, run a festival on the River Allier, further down at a place called Château-sur-l'Allier. And the village, the local bit of canton is called Ombreux, E-M-B-R-A-U-D, Ombreux. And they have a festival there every year, and it's on the banks of the Allier, and it's just lovely. And it's all put together by La Chaz. And if you're into staying in France for a long period, you can go from one to the other, because they got the time so that you go to Saint-Chartier or Château d'Arc, and you go to Genetine, and then you come back to Ombreux, and then you go up to Hainaut, and you can spend weeks and weeks over there. Just you come back with your ears ringing, all you can hear, and you're sleeping in your dreams. It's bloody Hurdy Gurdy's ring. I kid you not, you'll hear them. Similarly, if you go to Brittany, you'll hear bombards for weeks after you come back. You're familiar with a bombard, and you know, bombard is it's a little shorn, little double reed instrument, played like a hobo. Takes a lot of pressure to blow. So the bombardier,
Go blind quite a bit.
you could detach a retina quite easily. You could burst veins in your forehead, this sort of thing. So the music is usually carried by this little bagpipe, and it's like a little tiny scaled down version of the Scottish pipes, which they call the binu in Brittany, and they have two sides. They have the Scottish sides bagpipes, which they call the binu bra, and they have a little tiny chopped down one, which is exactly like a chopped down copy of the Scottish pipes, and it's called the binu cuss. And that carries, it goes squeaky, 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 squeaky. It's a squeaky little thing. Plays a tune all the way through. Bombard comes in and plays half an hour or something like that, and then stops, and the binu continues. And then the bombard picks up, usually on the last two notes of the phrase which they're going to pick up on. They play the last two notes of the preceding phrase and then carry the next bit with the bombard. But it requires this much pressure and concentration to play that they can't seem to sustain it. Although I've heard people play it very, very quietly. We were having this conversation at Saint-Chartier with the bombard player, and he said, no, it doesn't have to be all blow and bluster like that. He said, we can make it sound really sweet and quiet if we like to. And he had this bass put rear right up to the bell end of this bombard, and he played this tiny little tune on this thing. You just couldn't believe how precise and beautiful it sounded. And that's the bombard. In Germany, years and years and years ago, they used to have a similar instrument, because it's a shawl basically, and they used to use it to wake up the sleeping whenever there was a crisis in the town, or you know, at times of strife. Someone would run through the streets playing this bombard and wake the whole bloody population. It really is wonderful, wonderful, evocative sound. If you don't know it, and you go to Brittany in the summertime, and you go to some of the centres of music, places like Quimper and Gonkar and places like that, you'll hear this being played through these little speakers that they tie up in the trees all day long, every day, for weeks on end. And it lives in your head, and you can't get away from it. And you wouldn't want to, because it's so lovely. If you like that sort of thing. And I love it. Nothing else.
What's the wheel made from?
The wheel is it's a laminate, because it's profiled slightly like that, and it's to keep it stable, because if you turn a wheel out of a block of wood, you've got end grain and side grain, and as the atmosphere changes, so the wood grows lengthwise on the end-to-end grain, and the side grain shrinks in, so it becomes like a, you know, sort of a bit of a blip blip that goes, and it sort of lifts the string like this when you're turning, so you have to keep shading it. So you make it out of a piece of laminate, then you then you veneer it over and put a band of sycamore around it. So this is exactly that. There's a piece of laminate underneath with the veneer either side, and the sycamore band about that thick wrapped around the wheel with a scuff joint on top.
Any particular reason sycamore?
Sycamore is nice and easy to work and very friendly wood, and it's very stable. And it's easy to carve and machine and get hold of. Yeah, this is the head, the sides of the clavier are sycamore, and the wheel has got bits of sycamore. The soundboard is usually a spruce, quite often from Switzerland, and the back is rosewood and maple, but sycamore again if you like, but maple, a more figured version of sycamore for the other groups. And bits and pieces of ebony and in the old days ivory as well. This is bone now, of course. And did I explain about the buzzing? I don't know if you all understood the first time I was here, but when you're playing, because you've got this drone going and you're playing the melody and it's all a constant sound because of the drones, then you want to make some sort of rhythm out of that. So by articulating the right hand in a certain way, breaking up the rotation into rhythmical chunks, if you like, based on a clock face, so that they're always constant in the same position, the buzzers. So we consider that to be 12 o'clock when the hand was up at the top, around the clock face. And all of the intervals around the clock face, if you like, are called coups, or blows of the wrist, coup de poignet. And you might put two per turn, or 3 per turn, 4 per turn. You can get up to 16 if you're really, really clever. Some of these guys like Nigel Eaton and people like that can do 16 regular coups in one circumference, time and time again. And what it does, it adds momentum to this string here, which is sitting on a little bridge which is free to pivot, and it's held at a point of moment by this peg here, this cord, so that it's almost on a tipping point. So if I just increase the momentum of the wheel just momentarily, it causes that string to lift just a little bit and then drop back on the soundboard, and the bridge then buzzes on the soundboard in time of the piece that you're playing. Could have taken those strings off you a bit better, but that's the effect of the trumpet. And there it is.
Of the ones less ornate, what would they be, the sort of peasant ones?
They'd be probably all sort of sycamore or walnut or something like that.
So no one particular sort of wood?
The Hungarian ones tend to be primarily a sort of a sycamore type wood. Just a nice, easily workable white wood, which takes the stain nicely, and it's stable, it doesn't split, and it dries nicely, so you can work with it. It's an instrument, so it's tone wood. And this is just a veneer on here, obviously the ebony on top of a bit of sycamore again. But tangents tend to be harder, sort of with maybe hornbeam or something like that. Hornbeam is very good for the Xian as well, for the trumpet bridge. Because hornbeam is nice, tough wood. A bit like holly in the way it sort of has great deal of strength. So that's really the Hurdy Gurdy. When I got it down, I put these on the table. And Bill's asked me what these are. Paddy's playing with his balls again. They're called cascats, and they're just the most fascinating bit of percussion instrument. They usually played to accompany the djembe, or because they tend to come from Senegal and Mali and the western extremities of Africa. They used to be easy to get, they're a bugger now. I don't know why, because of the various wars and factions and disruptions that are going on over there. And also the Ebola crisis put a stop to the importation of these, because they thought, you know, somebody's coming from Africa, let's bring Ebola with it. It was pre-Ebola. Pre the last one anyway. And they're little gourds, they just grow on a vine. And they dry them out, cut a little hole in the end, scoop out the goodies, and fill them with little tiny stones in, stick a plug back in with a bit of cord on it. And you've got yourself a lovely little percussion instrument which takes months and months to master. You won't have a try. Cats, they're called. And if you go on the internet, there are guys who, there's one guy, I think, I don't know what nationality he is, he's probably, he's Eastern European anyway. He doesn't speak, it's all done by mime. And he's put about 40 lessons for cats on there. And he is just brilliant, he's lovely. And you can learn all kinds of stuff from him if you've got the patience. But there are Japanese kids using, they call them asalato. Kids do sort of playground games with them there, they're fascinating things. But I call them cats, and I play them like that. They're good for polkas and Scottishes and things like that. 6/8 rhythm is a bit harder, but it is possible, they assure me.
You want to take a break?
Yeah, I'm going to take a break now, there you go. Yeah. A song or two in the
Raffle tickets here.
Yeah, well,